Well, excited that you are all here today. Let's start right off doing what is critical, and that is Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers in the house. Come on, let's hear it for all the moms again. My mom, a greeting to my mom, greeting to my mother-in-law. They both watch every Sunday, and my mom gives me a report every week, and my wife gives me a report of what my mother-in-law says every week, and so we get that, and I appreciate the moms in my house. I texted, we have a gear text thread, and I texted my wife this morning on the gear thread, more to remind my children that it's Mother's Day, and I said, Happy Mother's Day, Tiffany. And my oldest daughter, 24, texts back on the thread, I was first, I already wished her Happy Mother's Day. Total first child. And I said, when you were pooping in the crib, I was wishing your mother Happy Mother's Day. Get in line, you're not gonna beat me. And our family's not competitive. We're not, I just win. Every time. So Happy Mother's Day, appreciate all the moms today. We're going to be continuing in our Friends series. I wanna talk a little bit about that, and then I'm gonna fly through this message. This is week 3 of the 6-week challenge, and I hope you're doing this. Every one of us are engaging. Here's what makes the challenge work, and that is not showing up, but it's showing up, hearing the preaching, and then applying the teaching. Really the truth of it is this message starts when I finish. That's so important to understand, as if we're gonna do church and you're gonna do the commitment to be here on Sunday and do the work to be here, to get your kids out the door, to get yourself here, make sure that you get the return on your investment. And the return on the investment is when you hear the preaching of the word and it's being imparted into your heart, you go and apply it to your life, because the depth of a message is not in the hearing of it. The depth of the message is in the living of it. And when you begin to live what we're gonna talk about today, that's when you begin to see the fruit of the work of your decisions. And so I just wanna always keep that in front of you, because I want us to be a church that applies what we hear. And in applying what we hear, we see the benefit of what we're doing. And so I want you to do that today. That's sort of the goal of this Friends series. In fact, one of the other things that I said in the first message in gratitude, and I want us to get this today, and that is one of the powers of this Friends series is not necessarily that you're like, I gotta go make new friends. I'm not looking for you to make new friends. I'm looking for you to slow down in your life and recognize what God is already doing in your life. Recognize who's already in your life. And as you slow down and recognize who's already in your life, you're gonna get a fruit out of that you didn't even realize. Why? Because God's been working on this series ever before we started this series. And so part of, in our American culture where we're go, 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 this series I hope slows us down to be able to see where we're at and who we're in the midst of and how we can get more out of right where we're at in a beneficial way. So I throw all those prefaces things out so we can jump into today's message, which we're talking about wise friends. The importance of having wise friends in our life. And we want our kids to have them. We need them. We want everyone in this room to have wise friends. And we want everyone in this room to be a wise friend. And so the questions come up, well, how do you get them? How do you identify them? How do you recognize them? How do you know if you have them or you don't have them? And so we're gonna jump in to a proverb first. I'm gonna read it out of the ESV, English Standard Version, Proverbs 13:20. Here's what it says. It says, walk with the wise and become wise. Now that's the latter half of the message. We'll talk about that part. But I wanna start with recognizing fools, because when you recognize a fool, you also recognize a wise person. Walk with the wise and you become wise. Watch the shift here. For a companion of fools suffers harm. Interesting. Hang out with the wise, become wise. Hang out with a fool, you don't become a fool, you suffer harm. There's a degree of worseness, if you could say, in suffering harm. I don't want to suffer harm. But this is an important thing to be aware of, a warning sign that when you hang out and are influenced, I should say even more so,
not necessarily hanging out, but when you are influenced by a fool, you will suffer harm. There's a lot of secular proverbs that you probably know. Here's one of them. Show me your friends and I'll show you your future. We hate that sentence, but it is so true. Show me your friends, I'll show you your future. In fact, here's another one that you may have heard before. You are the average of your 5 closest friends. So take inventory really quickly. You're like, don't. And it's not you're the best of your 5 closest friends. It's also you're not the worst of your 5 closest friends, though there are exceptions. You are the average of your 5 closest friends. So how do you know if you're a companion of fools? You know, here's one of the things that we just have to realize. We are less aware than we think we are. In fact, the minute you think you are self-aware, you've proven you're not. Self-awareness is a journey we're always going on to see and evaluate who we are. I've had a couple things that have helped me in this process of ongoingly seeing who I am. One of them was we did a 360-degree evaluation here at the church where I had my board rate me. I had this is several years ago. I had the board rate me. I had my fellow workers rate me. I had some of those that I lead rate me. And when I read the report, they were wrong. I was like, what? Really? And you get to learn a lot about yourself in that self-awareness process. But I'll tell you what taught me more self-awareness than anything else, my kids. And the older they get, the less they have fear of telling you what they think. And they're more knowledgeable. And by the time they're 16, I mean, they have everything figured out in life. So they want to coach you. But I've learned a lot from my 16-year-old daughter. It's amazing. You know, she's like, you say that rude, as she says it rudely. And I'm like, no, I don't. Who do you think you are? Oh, I'm coming across rude. She's right. You know, you learn a lot about who you are, and the self-awareness causes you to grow. And then you're like, well, where am I picking all of these things up? Hey, here's the truth. Who you hang out with affects you. Who you live life with has an impact on your life. The people you spend time with shape your soul. The people you spend time with shape your mind, how you think. Get this, the people you hang out with shape your body. You ever seen a couple married for a long time and they end up looking like each other? No, I mean, it's weird. In fact, I've seen people who look like their pets. You begin to look like your dog. Which, let me just pause the message right here. I want to give you a quick little fun story. I just love this story. It's crazy to me. Made my week. Wednesday night, we have a couple that attends Wednesday night. They sit up in the balcony, and then they serve on Saturday. So they're attend one, serve one, props. And I met them coming down the stairs on Wednesday night, and they were all grinning really big, and mom was really smiling big. She goes, you're not gonna believe this. She goes, we went to dinner before church, and the kids want to get another dog, and I said, we're not getting another dog, we already have 2, and there's this cute little puppy that they wanted to get, and they're like, we're not doing it. These are teenage boys, and and the dad, and they're wanting it, and they're like, no. Well, they went to dinner, and the mom said, I'll tell you what, if for some reason Kevin says dog in the message tonight, I'll let you guys get a dog. Now, dog's not even in my message. It's not even in my notes. And I said, in my notes, it says, your bodies even can look the same. And then I just said, you know what? Sometimes people look like their dog. Now they're getting a dog. That's crazy. So think of a word. And if I say it, you have to tithe double. Okay, so here we go. I'm joking. Let me give you some characteristics just to help you spot a fool in your life, because they're all around. And then I want you to see some of the characteristics that define a fool before we jump into the whys, because I think it's helpful for us. Here's a couple things, just moving down the list real quick. They're gonna hate God. Psalms 14:1 says that. The fool says in his heart, there is no God. They enjoy sinning. They find pleasure in sinning. If you have a friend that enjoys sinning, that'll be a fool. They hurt people and they hurt themselves. They despise wisdom. Proverbs 9:8 says, rebuke a fool and he'll despise you.
They hate wisdom. They talk a lot. They're slanderers. They're boasters. They're the ones that just blah on social media all the time. And you're just like, filter, please, you know? They're a fool. They have no emotional intelligence or no EQ within their life. They're quick-tempered. They're quick to create issues where there aren't issues. They're drama-seeking people. They stir up drama and fights. In fact, Proverbs chapter 18, verse 6 is one of my favorite verses right now for one of my kids is this one right here. It says, a fool's lips walk into a fight, and his mouth invites a beating. I love that verse. You want to eat, memorize that verse. Okay, that's what I'm telling my kids. It's powerful. This is a fool. This is the description of a fool within our lives. But here's something else you need to know about fools. Fools are fun. This is why we have them. I like to hang out with them. Fools are fun for a season. They're entertaining. They make us laugh at times. Fools are like a stick of butter. I got some butter here. You got to say butter right, okay? I love butter. Butter makes everything taste good. Listen, there was broccoli. Whoa. But then there was broccoli with butter. There was asparagus. Ugh. But then there was asparagus with butter. Popcorn with butter. Oreos dipped in butter. I mean, I'm gonna tell you, I love butter. Oh, how many people here? Butter and steak. Oh, I'm hungry. Oh, I love butter. And I gotta do this illustration here. And I love butter. And butter is a fool. That's the symbol. Why? Because this is you. I am trained. This is you. And one of the things that, I'm just joking. Insurance said no. But I was practicing. Okay, that wasn't as funny as I thought it was gonna be. I should have just done one finger. But what I was saying is, this is you, and you have a purpose. You have a purpose in life to achieve what you want to achieve. And when we just are influenced by fools, here's what happened. It works for a season. We're achieving cutting the butter better than cutting the cheese. You knew that was coming. Here's the deal. The more I cut the butter over time, the blade becomes what? Dull. Over time, the blade becomes dull. That's what fools will do in your life when you are influenced by them. Over time, you become dull. They're fun. They add something to life for a season, but eventually they will make you not able to accomplish that which you want to accomplish. Fools are like butter. Now you're like, well, Kevin, are you saying we should get rid of all the fools in our life? Like go on a fool witch hunt? I see some of you elbowing your neighbor right now. No, I'm not saying that. Why? Because in the transformational model, for us to be like who God wants us to be, we have church, we have our Jesus friends, and we have our lost friends. And we need people in our life that we are reaching and influencing and working on. But here's the point. If you don't have wise friends, you have nothing to give your fool friends. We need wise friends in our life. Proverbs chapter 27, verse 17 says this, as iron sharpens iron, so a friend sharpens a friend. And the focus of today is to have wise friends in our life and to be a wise friend. That there's this sharpening that is taking place in our life. But I will tell you, when iron meets iron, it's not like a knife and butter. Sparks fly. There's a sharpening that takes place. And so I have here a knife sharpener. And one of the things that you have in a knife sharpener, when this comes together, you have here a grind taking place. I mean, it's, ugh. Fingers on chalkboard. Don't worry, I'm not gonna lose an ear, but if I do, Jesus knows how to grow them back. You can hear the process of this knife being sharpened. Why? Because there's this forming that's taking place. There's metal on metal that's happening where metal is being formed into a sharper blade. And this is what a wise friend will sound like when you and them are talking. There's a grinding taking place. Grind long enough, there's chafing that takes place. I mean, there's a process of metal on metal coming together to bring a sharpening, a grind that happens. The act of sharpening requires the removal of material, of something stronger or different kind of material, which butter cannot sharpen a knife, it dulls it. But iron on iron, though there's sparks involved, bring it to a sharpness. Let me make this practical for you. I want to look in in Exodus chapter 18. I want to look at a story of two irons. The first one is Jethro. Second one is Moses. They're both iron people. They're both wise people. Let me give you the quick story, and then what we're going to do is we're going to look at several characteristics of a wise friend. And here's the goal. I want you to listen to this. I want you to listen to the message and go, I need wise friends. I need to be a wise friend. If you only hear the message, I need wise friends, you're missing out on the potential that God has for you. He wants you to be a wise friend. So I need wise friend, and I want to be a wise friend, okay? And so let me set up the story. Moses was in Egypt. He killed an Egyptian. He ran out of Egypt and he went into the wilderness. He met Jethro, started taking care of Jethro's sheep. Jethro had a ton of sheep. He also had a daughter. Moses had hots for his daughter, marries her, okay? Jethro becomes father-in-law, Jethro, okay? Eventually, Moses is out taking care of sheep, burning bush, scares him. He talks, takes off his shoes, and the bush says, go let my people go. Get my people out of there. So Moses goes into Egypt, talks to Pharaoh, leads the nation of Israel out of Egypt, and they're on their way to the promised land, and they're in the wilderness, and Jethro hears all of this and wants to come see his daughter and his son-in-law, Moses. And so in Exodus chapter 18, the in-laws show up. We love this chapter. The in-laws show up to visit Moses, and this is what we see in this story. And so what happens is Jethro comes along, and he begins to ask Moses about the story. Here's the first thing that I want you to see on what a wise friend does and what we do as wise friends. Point number one, wise friends show up and listen. What do I mean by that? Wise friends show up and listen. Well, what happens is Jethro shows up and Moses begins to tell Jethro all the things that God had done. About the plagues, the 10 plagues, him standing in front of Pharaoh going, let my people go, how God rescued him. And Jethro is spending time listening to all of this firsthand. Now, I am sure, because I know human nature, that you get 1 million people leaving Egypt, there's been a lot of talk around the area. I am sure Jethro has heard all kinds of stories about what happened down in Egypt. And I can pretty much guarantee not all the stories were accurate. Why? Have you ever played the game telephone? Well, one person tells another person, tells another person, tells another person. They don't even have telephones back then. And so you know this story. I mean, I'm sure there were conspiracies about aliens showing up. Why? It's human nature, okay? Because when we don't understand, we make up excuses to understand. What I love about Jethro is he showed up and asked Moses, tell me what is happening. You know what fools do? Fools believe the hearsay. Fools make conclusions about individuals based on what everybody else is saying. Wise people go straight to the source. Wise friends go straight to the source. They give you benefit of the doubt until they hear it firsthand. Just a question to wrestle in your heart. Are you a wise friend, or do you believe the hearsay? Like, look what happens in Exodus chapter 18, verse 9. Jethro was delighted when he heard about the good things the Lord had done. There was a delight in Jethro as he listened, as Moses is an iron sharpening Jethro. He was delighted when he heard about the good things the Lord has done for Israel as he rescued him from the hand of the Egyptians. So the first point I want us to get is wise friends show up and they listen. Second thing, wise friends, though you are a wise friend and you're looking for a wise friends point to God's goodness. Wise friends point to God's goodness. Wise friends help you see the goodness of God. They encourage you. They inspire you. I want my friends, when I'm hanging around with them, to love Jesus more because they hung out with me. Do your friends love Jesus more because they hung out with you? And you can do that without having to preach at them. We're going to talk a little bit about that next week. I want my friends to love Jesus. Why? Because in the way that I live life, I point out the things that God is doing. I want my wife to love Jesus more because she hung out with me. I want my children to love Jesus more because they hung out with me. And here's the key, and it's not because I'm perfect. Sometimes they love Jesus more because they see my imperfectness. And they're like, well, if God can love him, he can love anybody. So don't put the pressure on yourself to be perfect. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying be you and let your life, your canvas point to Jesus. And in the process, people are glad, well, I'm glad you're not God. There's an important part. I have a friend, last week, I was in Billings for 4 days, and I was sick last week. I got this, in fact, I'm still working on it. I don't know if it's Flathead Valley fever or what. It's just sitting on my chest right here and right there. And now you have it. And I'm on an antibiotic and it's been taking care of it. But man, I was sick last week and I was traveling. But my wife was with me, so that was fun. And so we were in Billings for 4 days, and then I spoke at a conference in Sacramento. And so I was there for 2 days, and then I flew to Seattle, and then I spoke at a church. I tried to do everything in 1 week. And then I spoke at a church in Seattle on Sunday, and then I came back Sunday night. And after I got done speaking there, we had the afternoon open, and the pastor of the church, his name is Troy, and his wife's name is Jana. They're like, well, let's just hang out before you guys have to fly. I'm like, this is awesome. And so you put Troy and I in a car. We both talk loud because we get excited. And it's iron and iron. Like we just like, and we argue, and we discuss, and we wrestle, and we agree, and then we disagree, and then I'm right, and then we go back and forth, and Jana and Tiffany are in the back seat going, when is this over? It's just like, but I'll tell you what, when I get done hanging out with Troy, I love Jesus better. When I get done hanging out with Troy, now there's sparks flying. I'm a better leader. I'm a better pastor. I care for people deeper. Why? Because Troy is just iron in my life that just sharpens me. And I love hanging out with him. And I want to go be a better person after hanging out with him. Do you have friends in your life that after hanging out with them, you just want to be a better person and you want to love Jesus more, and they're a person that you can reach out and that you can call and get wisdom from? Do you have them in your life? Because I'm going to tell you, you need them in your life. Flipping the script here, are you that person for people? And if you're not that person for people, why not? Why would you not want to be that kind of a person? Because God wants to develop you into that person. God wants to use you in that way. You should be, and I should be, a wise person for people in our lives. Our sin doesn't disqualify us because our Jesus forgives us of our sin. And so sometimes don't disqualify yourself. Step up to who God, through the power of the Spirit living in you. You're not looking at your own ability. You're looking at the Spirit of God in you that makes you a wise person. And we are called to be wise people. And so we want to be this way. This is what Moses is doing to Jethro. In fact, there's a different word here that you can use. Excuse me. There's a different word that you can use here called honing. You ever been around friends that make you like people less afterwards? Like you just hang out with certain people and then afterwards you're just like, the world is dark and terrible. And you just form into Eeyore? Yeah. They're the opposite of a wise friend. And so there's this part of honing that needs to take place within our life. And wise friends not only give us wisdom and sharpen us, they hone us. Let me show you what I mean here. This is not a knife sharpener, though a lot of people think it's a knife sharpener. This will not sharpen a knife. This hones a knife. And you put this at a 45-degree angle, and it's honing this knife. You know, Kevin, how do you know so much stuff? I watched YouTube in preparation for this message. And there's other people sitting out there going, he's ruining the knife. Okay, stop judging. Here's the thing. What is honing? Honing is not sharpening this knife, but when the knife is used again and again and again, the edge starts to go like this. And it decreases the effectiveness of the blade. When you hone a knife, you're bringing this back into alignment to be straight for its maximum cut. We need people in our life because life will get us dull and make us like this, which means I'm lacking a better word to describe this. And honing brings us back into alignment. This is what Moses, I'm gonna start preaching that way. This is what Moses is doing to Jethro. He's honing him. What is he doing? He's pointing out the good thing that God is doing. And listen to the response of Jethro in the honing process of Moses honing Jethro. Exodus 18:11. This is the words of Jethro after hanging out with Moses. Now I know that the Lord is greater than all other gods because he's rescued his people from the oppression of the Egyptians. You can see he's verbalizing this honing process. There was a sharpening process. I am delighted in what the Lord has done. And now I see that the Lord, there's a honing process. Your friends should be pointing who God is and bringing your perspective to God's perspective. That's what honing does. Wise friends bring your perspective into alignment by showing you God's perspective. And you want to be that kind of friend as well. So the first one that I talked about is wise friends show up and listen. Second, wise friends point to God's goodness. Third, wise friends are not afraid to ask challenging questions. Wise friends are not afraid to ask challenging questions. Now it's Jethro's turn to give some advice. Let me set up the story here that it continues. So they spend the day together, and then the next day, Moses goes about what he normally does. And what Moses would normally do on a day, from morning until evening, he'd go sit on some rock, and all the people that had issues or struggles or needed decisions would line up to talk to Moses. And then Moses would sit there and he would give decisions and make judgment calls and tell people how they should settle this. And then the next person, I call it the DMV version of the Bible. Okay, there's just all day long, you're just waiting for your turn. And they're just waiting for Moses to come. And there's a long line. And Jethro is watching all of this. From morning till evening. At the end of the evening, after the day was over, Jethro walks up to Moses and asks a phenomenal father-in-law question. Here's what he says, verse 14. He says, "What are you really accomplishing here?" Don't you love it when the in-laws ask that question? What, Moses, son? What are you really accomplishing here? And he's asking in a curious kind of a way. Why are you trying to do all of this alone? And everyone stands around from morning till evening. It's a good, heart-searching question. One of the things you see out of iron sharpening iron is Jethro here is asking a good question. A question that makes Moses pause and consider. I like it that Jethro didn't start with just going, "You're an idiot." He didn't start there. Well, what are you trying to accomplish here? What's the big picture? Good questions can stir hearts. You know who's a master question asker? Jesus. In fact, when you read the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and you're in the middle of that, if you're doing the Canvas Bible plan, You are seeing Jesus ask questions again and again and again and again. Questions open up the heart to consider, to ponder. Questions lead to life change. And this is what Jethro is asking. He's saying, what are you up to? What are you trying to accomplish here? Now, you know how Moses responded? He played the God card. I'm just doing what God told me to do. Because that gets you off the hook for everything. So he plays the God card. A wise friend will always challenge your God cards. Not that they disagree with them, they're just gonna search them. They're just gonna make sure it is. They're just gonna look a little bit deeper on that. And Jethro, being wise and asking questions, there's a big difference, by the way, in sharing on opinions and asking helpful questions. And wise people understand that. If you're wondering, why do all my friends reject my wisdom? It might be your delivery. It might be your delivery thinking you're wise. One of the things you're gonna see, given a spoiler alert here for the next 3 minutes, is the love of Jethro for Moses. You cannot give wisdom without having a heart of love for them. You're gonna see that significantly next week. Too often we wanna give wisdom without love. That's arrogance. Opposite of wisdom. A wisdom has love intertwined within it. And so Jethro hears Moses' response. I'm just doing what God told me to do. And then Jethro sees the door open to speak a truth. Exodus chapter 18, verse 17 and 18. Here's what he says. This is not good. You're gonna wear yourself out. No, you see the love right there. Jethro is concerned about Moses wearing himself out. There's a love for him right there. You're gonna wear yourself out, and he sees the big picture, Jethro does. And the people too. He's looking at this going, this isn't gonna work long term, Moses. The job is too heavy of a burden for you to be able to carry by yourself. Moses, this isn't why. And here is the wisdom. I tell you, sparks. Anybody like it when someone comes up and says to you, you're not doing a good job? When they're a sheep herder and you're a car mechanic, and they're like, you know what? If you tighten that tension belt, go take care of your sheep. What do you know? There's always excuses to reject wisdom. There's a sharpening taking place right here. You see it. This isn't good. And then Jethro gives advice. Jethro gives some advice. Here's what you need to do, Moses. Just a suggestion. In fact, you'll see his delivery here in a second. It's so good. But he gives them this advice. You need to create a new org chart. And you're at the top, and you have a bunch of people doing your work for me, and you're investing in it. It's a brilliant leadership lesson right there, by the way. Exodus chapter 18. And he gives them this great leadership lesson. Great wisdom, by the way. Great truth. And then I want you to see this part. I love this part. Verse 23. Verse 23, listen to how Jethro gives the wisdom. Brilliant. Here's what he says. If you follow this advice, let me just pause right there. It's a suggestion, not a ramming down his throat. Master delivery. If you follow this advice, relationships not hinge on if he follows his advice or not. If you follow this advice, and then look what he does. He acknowledges the God card of Moses. And if God commands you to do it, a brilliant delivery. And if God commands you to do so, then you will be able to endure the pressures. And there's that love again for the individual Moses and for the people. And all these people will go home in peace. This is amazing right here. This is incredible, incredible. If you follow this advice, and if God commands you to do so, you will be able to endure the pressures. That is the goal right there of life. That sentence, and you will be able to endure the pressures, is why we need, every one of us in this room, we need wise friends. Why? Because you cannot endure the pressures of being a mother without wise friends in your life. You will come to the end of you. And there might be mothers in this room today that are at the end of themselves. It's because you're doing it all alone and you need wise friends in your life. You cannot endure the pressures of being a father on your own. You cannot man up enough to achieve life. You need wise friends in your life. You cannot endure the pressures of leadership by yourself. We cannot endure the pressures of life by ourselves. We need wise friends to speak into our lives, that we reach out to at times and go, I just need a perspective change. I need a sharpening. I need some honing because my blade's getting out of whack. You can't endure the pressures of marriage without wise friends in your life. And then here's the key. Here's what happens. Jethro sees the ripple effect of this. Moses, if you do this, then the people will have peace. Well, why will the people have peace? Because peace is contagious. It is. How do I know that? Because when a father's at peace, the home is at peace. When a mother is at peace, the children are at peace. When the boss is at peace, the workplace is at peace. Why? Because peace is contagious. And this is what Jethro is saying to Moses. And this is what Moses is listening to is iron is sharpening iron. This is not good. But if you will follow this suggestion, peace throughout the camp. Moses listened. You can read that in verse 24 on your own. There's a proverb that says, to those who listen to wisdom, they will love their friend. You begin to love those who give you wisdom. Moses didn't get offended. Moses didn't get upset. I'm sure he could have, but he chose to lean into the wisdom around him. And he made changes. And the people received peace because of it. And he was more effective. And his influence grew. So I say this. Let's have wise friends. Let's seek them out. And let's be those wise friends. Humbly speak at the right time. Would you grab your connection card? I'm going to do something a little different as we get ready to close here. I encourage you, I don't know if you know this or not, every week to fill this out. If you're here and you're not a follower of Jesus and you know that you should be, would you mark that first box? I have decided to follow Jesus today. Maybe you're here and you're like, I don't listen to advice. You should check that box. And now you're listening to advice, so you're growing. And now if you just went, no, now that you said it, I'm not going to, that's pride. You have issues. Glad you're here. Maybe it's the third one. I will seek and I will be. It's not an either or, it's a both and. I need wise friends and I need to be a wise friend. I will seek and I will be a sharpening friend. And then lastly, I am grateful to the wise friends that God has put in my life. And I'm going to thank God for them and thank them today. Here's the last thing I want to do. And then we're going to stand up and close and get out of here. If you need a mentor in your life, we're going to try something here. I don't know if it's going to work or not, but that never stops us from trying stuff. If you need a mentor in your life, would you just write on this card, make sure your name's on the front and contact information. I need a mentor. And we're going to help you find a mentor. I know that sometimes in life we just get to a spot where we're like, I just don't have anyone and I need a mentor. Write that on there. And if you're willing to be a mentor, right, I will be a mentor. And then we'll follow up and talk with you and figure out who you are. And then we'll put people together and let you guys decide when to meet. And maybe the Holy Spirit's going to bring some people together for such a time as this, that we can have wise investing into those who need. And you just write that on there. And if the Lord's prompting your heart to do that, you do. I need a mentor. I want to be a mentor. Would you stand all across this place? Here are the three statements again. A wise friend shows up and listens. A wise friend points to God's goodness. And wise friends are not afraid to ask challenging questions. And wise people lean into wisdom. Okay. So now the message starts. Because now you go live it. So you've heard the preamble, the introduction. Now you go live it. Go live the message. By the way, at the end of every gathering, if you ever need prayer, we moved our prayer station right up over here in the front. We have people that will pray for you over there. Love to pray for people. I'll say this and then I got to close. About almost 20 years ago, I was sitting in a gathering at a church. They had prayer up at the front. And the Lord, I was struggling with RA. Couldn't move my hands, and I felt like the Lord said, go get prayed for. And I went and got prayed for. And never struggled with it again. And it wasn't like something special. Whoa! I just went and prayed for it and got in the car on the way home. I said, Tiffany, I went and got prayed for. She goes, okay. I went to the doctor and never had a problem since. We serve a God that loves us. So Father, I pray at the conclusion of this gathering, but at the start of the message, may we go live it and learn it and see the depth of it. May we be wise friends to our world. Would you just move that in our hearts? Would we be wise friends to our world? And may we lean into the wisdom of those around us, I pray. In Jesus' name, everybody said, amen. I love you, Canvas. See you next week, everybody.